Hello, this is Jane Eyre's theme of gender distinction, or the differentiation between man and woman. Gender distinction is one of the elements or the issues that Charlotte Bronte criticized in her text. This is because women in the Victorian age were restrained or limited or confined by a patriarchal society. It's a society in which man or the male has the dominance on various aspects or domains of life. That's why Bronte used a man's name in writing her novel. As you have known, that Charlotte Bronte wrote under pseudonym of Currer Bell. Bronte said, I looked upon prejudice or discrimination between people, which is one form of injustice. Jane, the protagonist of the novel, struggles continually to achieve equality and to overcome this state of oppression or injustice. In addition to class hierarchy or class discrimination, Jane must fight against patriarchal domination or the hierarchical power structure of man versus woman, which constitutes the difference between the private and the public sphere, with the public sphere specified for men, whereas the private sphere specified for women. Actually, Jane struggles against those who believe women to be inferior to men in that patriarchal hierarchy. Those patriarchal figures who consider women as inferior to men try to treat women as such. There are three central male figures in the novel who threaten Jane's desire for equality and dignity. Those men are Mr. Brocklehurst, the one who is responsible for Lowood Charity School, then Edward Rochester, and finally St. John Rivers. All the three men are misogynistic on some level. By misogynistic, we mean that they hate women or they consider women as being inferior to men. Each one of them tries to keep Jane in a submissive position or a lower status where she is unable to express her own thoughts and feelings. In her quest for independence and self-knowledge, Jane must escape Brocklehurst as she left Lowood School in order to work as an independent governess. Similarly, She rejects the proposal of St. John because it's a cold proposal which is not based on mutual love. And she comes to Rochester only after ensuring the fact that they will marry as social equals. This last condition is met once Jane proves herself able to function through the time she spends at Moore House, in a community and in a family. She will not depend solely or only on Rochester for love, and she can be financially independent. Furthermore, Rochester is blind at the novel's end, and thus he becomes dependent upon Jane to be his prop and guide. In chapter 12, Jane articulates or expresses or utters what was for her time a radically feminist philosophy, or what was considered during the Victorian age as being rebellious female thought or notions. Jane states that women are supposed to be very calm generally, which means that women have no right to feel anger at sometimes. But women feel just as men feel. Jane illustrates the fact that such as men, women also can feel anger because they can be exposed to hard situations. Women need exercise for their faculties, their minds, their imagination, and a field to their efforts as much as their brothers do. Here, Jane explains the fact that women are the brothers of men, so they need the same requirements and they can exert or do the same efforts. They suffer from too rigid restraint, too hard confinements or restrictions, to absolute stagnation. Absolute means utter, while stagnations meaning paralysis or lack of movement, precisely as men would suffer. And it's narrow-minded in their more privileged fellow creatures. Here Jane accuses men to be narrow-minded fellows, to say that they ought to confine themselves when men say that women must limit themselves to making puddings, a kind of jelly sweets, and knitting stockings, to playing on the piano and embroidering يعني تزيين bags. This is the end of the quotation. It's thoughtless to condemn them. When men condemn women or draw a negative image of women, this is not based on thinking rationally. It's something thoughtlessly. Or laugh at them if they seek to do more or to learn more than custom has pronounced necessary for their sex. Some men reject the fact that women need to learn more, and those men laugh at those women. So Jane is condemning those men or disapproving their condition. The Gothic character is usually handsome, romantic, and aristocratic hero. The Gothic heroine usually wants to free herself from man dominance. She always has strong morals. This is one of the stereotypical image of women. This stereotypical image is prevalent in the Gothic novel, which always presents women as a passive victim, romantic creature, unable of rational thinking. Jane or Charlotte Bronte refers to another important figure in the novel, Bertha Mason or Bertha the Crazy. Rochester, the first wife who is locked in the third story. Some critics have read Bertha as symbolic representation of the trapped Victorian woman, which means that Bertha symbolizes any Victorian woman who is victimized, imprisoned by her society's restrictions and confinement, confined in her private sphere or domestic sphere, who is expected never to travel or to work outside the house or the domestic sphere, and becomes ever more frenzied or mad as she finds no outlet. مفيش مخرج for her frustration and anxiety, for her feelings of worry, feelings of suppressed anger. Within the story, then, Bertha's insanity or madness could serve as a warning to Jane of what complete surrender to or complete submission to Rochester could bring about her. Finally, the issue of gender distinction in this novel is discussed on three axes. Number one, the perspective through which men look upon women, with a special reference to Rochester, Lockwood, and St. John. Secondly, the stereotypical image of women regarding her education and social position. And finally, Bertha Mason as a symbol of the mad woman in the attic or the trapped Victorian woman. This is the end of our lecture. Thanks for watching and goodbye.